Let's learn the basics of the print function in Python. So the way the print function works is that if you just type print and then put open parentheses, and then in this case, we'll use open quotes and close quotes, then we'll just write some text. Let's say hello. Now go ahead and save it and run this code. You'll see that it outputs hello. Now you don't need to use just double quotes here. So let's say I wrote the same thing or something a little bit different in single quotes. I'm gonna go ahead and save and then run the code. It'll say hi here. So you don't need to use double quotes. You can also use single quotes. What you can't do is use, let's say, a combination of double quotes and single quotes. If you did, when again, save and then run, I'll get a syntax error. So it'll say unterminated string literal. So it's saying, okay, you've opened the print function here. You're going to tell me what you're going to write, but you never closed it. You never added this double quotes here to tell me this is the text. This is the end of the text that I wanted to produce. Now, if you wanted to use double quotes and single quotes, let's say you had an expression like John's chicken. This at first glance looks like a problem because we have this open quote here. It's saying, okay, I'm going to print or show to the screen whatever comes after this. And then, you've closed it out. You said, this is what you want me to print. Then you have another open quote here. And so Python's saying, okay, where's the close quote? So if you wanted to write this because you have an apostrophe here, what you could do, one method, is just to surround the whole thing in double quotes. So now we have this open quote here. It says, okay, it's saying print everything after this double quotes here until you get to the closed double quotes. And so it ignores this single quote there. So if we go ahead and save and run, you'll see that it prints out John's chicken. Now, another thing you could do is instead, let's write Mike's chicken here. Another thing you could do is if you wanted to use single quotes, because that is your jam right here, you could escape the apostrophe. And so if you put a backslash there, it'll ignore the single quote as closing out the string or the text. So if we go ahead and save and run, we should see Mike's chicken below John's chicken. And there we go. We have hello, hi, John's chicken, Mike's chicken. Now I'm going to go ahead and comment out all of this. And one more thing that I want to point out is that we can use triple quotes. And the situation in which you'd use triple quotes would be a situation where you have, let's say, multiple lines. So let's write print, and then we'll go quote, quote, quote. So we have 3 quotes there, and then quote, quote, quote. So 3 quotes there. And then we'll write something. Hello, welcome to John's chicken. Our chicken is better than Mike's chicken. So let's go ahead and print this. So the triple quote here allowed us to span multiple lines. Now I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. Now the thing about the print function is it just doesn't take strings, that is text as input, or information that is surrounded by quotes. You can also print numbers. So let's go ahead and print a number. Let's say print an integer. Let's say 3 here. So if we go ahead and run it, let's save and run. You see it prints out 3. And you can print other kinds of data types. So for example, let's print a floating point number. This is just a number with a decimal point. And so if we go ahead and run that, save and run, you see it prints out 3.14. So there's many different things that you can print out. Let me give you one more example. So not only can we print out numbers, but we can print out something else. Let's print out, I don't know, a list. So a list is going to be a collection of things that is surrounded by these square brackets. So I'm going to create these brackets here, and then I'll write 1, 2, 3. So here's a list of 3 numbers. And then let's make one more list. Let's have a list of A, B, and then C. So we have 2 lists here. So what you'd expect to see from this print function is that it will print out a 1, 2, 3, and then A, B, C. So let's save and run. And so there we have it. We have this list 1, 2, 3, and then a list A, B, C. Now there are plenty of other things that we can print out, but let's take a closer look at the syntax associated with this print function. I'm going to comment all of this out. So this is the syntax and the parameters associated with this print function. So we're going to look at a couple of these. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is notice that it says we can print a value or values. So what I'd like to do is try to print more than one thing because it says it can take multiple values. And so let's try to print a list of greetings. Let's print hi, hello, and howdy. So notice that in each one of our greetings here, we're separating each one of our values, and each one of these are strings or text, and each one is separated with this comma here. So here's value 1, hello is value 2, and howdy is value 3. Let's save and run. And what we have printed out here is hi, hello, and howdy. Notice that there is a space between each one of these. Just to kind of illustrate this again, let's not only print out a list of strings, but let's also print out hi, and then let's say the number 2, and then let's print out a list. Let's write, I don't know, A, B, and C. So what we should expect to be printed to our screen here is hi. We should see the number 2, and then we should see this list. So let's see if we get that. I'm going to save and run. And so yeah, we have hi, 2, and then this list A, B, C, and each one is separated by a space. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. And then what I want to do again is take another look at this print function. So notice that it not only takes multiple values, but there's also this sep or separator. And by default, the separator between the different values is a space. If we hover over it, we see that the separator parameter can be any string. So what this tells us is that the separator between the different values does not need to be a space. So let's test this out. I'm going to copy this print hi, hello, howdy, and I'm going to put a comma after all of them and then write sep. Then I'm going to specify the separator. And so the separator by default is this space, as we've seen. But let's put you can put whatever you want, but let's put a little star between each one. So what we should expect to see is hi, hello, and howdy. And rather than a space being between them, we should see this little asterisk right there. Let's save and run the code. And so there we have it. We have hi, asterisk, hello, asterisk, howdy. Let's try this again, and let's make this separator, I don't know, 3 periods. Let's see if we can put 3 periods there. And so let's save and run. And so there we have it. We have hi, these 3 periods, hello, 3 periods, and howdy. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out these 2 print statements, and I'm going to take a look again at our print function. So another parameter associated with this print function is the end. And we say that we can pass in a value of a string to this end parameter. So let's experiment with that. I'm going to go ahead and copy our print hi, hello, howdy statement from earlier. So let's take a look at this. And in this case, I want to specify the end. And this is what is going to be printed out at the end of our values. So if we scroll down a little bit and hovering over end, we see that the end parameter is a string appended after the last value. And by default, it is a new line. So here we have 3 print statements, hi, hello, and howdy. And what happens with these print statements is that after hi is printed, a new line is created. And then after hello is printed, a new line is created. And the same thing with howdy. So if we run these 3 print statements, we should see hi, hello, and howdy on 3 separate lines. And that's what we see here, hi, hello, and howdy. Now we have this end parameter. So what we could do is specify what that end parameter should be. So let's have, rather than the end parameter be a new line, let's just have it be a space. And let's do the same thing for hello. We'll specify that the end parameter, it takes a string as a value and it's just a space. So what we should see here is hi, hello, and howdy all on the same line. So let's save this and run. And so there we have it. We have hi, hello, and howdy. Now we can add different types of values for the end parameter. We can make it 3 periods again, 3 periods. And so if we run this again, we see hi, hello, howdy. And so what's happening here is that these 3 periods are not separators between each one of these print statements, but hi is printed and then it ends with 3 periods. Hello is printed and then it ends with 3 periods. So here again is our print function. We talked about how we can send a value or values as input to be printed. We've talked about how we can specify some kind of string that separates each one of those values or that occurs or pops up between each one. We talked about how we can specify what the end should be printed out. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I won't talk about this flush, is file. So one thing that we have been doing is always printing to the terminal, but what we can do is print to a file instead. So I'm going to go ahead, there's a couple ways of doing this, but I'm just going to go ahead and write with open. And then I'm going to say new file in quotation marks .txt. And I want to write this file. So I'm going to open up a file, and I'm going to open up this file with the intent of writing to that file or printing on that file. And I'm going to call this out file. So this is just the variable name I'm going to use with respect to this file that I'm opening. And then I'm going to say print, and then I'm going to specify some text. So this is the value that the print function is taking. And so I'm going to write, here is some text that I'm writing to a file. And then one thing to note is we can write file. So rather than printing to the terminal, we can specify which file we want to print this text to. And so since I've called this file that I'm opening here, this out file, I'm going to say that the file that I want to write to is this out file. So now what happens is if I run the code, instead of printing to the terminal at the bottom here, it will instead print to the file. So it's going to create a new file and then write this text on that file. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and save and run the code. And I see in terms of my output, there's nothing there. But if I go over to the file explorer here, one thing that I'll see is that I have this new file.txt here. And if I go ahead and open that up, it says here is some text that I'm writing to a file, which is what I printed out there. So finally, as an exercise, if you're into that type of thing, here's something you can try out for yourself. What you should try to do is using two different print functions, not one, but two different lines where you're writing print and then print again. So using two different print functions, you should try to write the phrase, "You are beautiful. I think you are amazing." So the challenge would be to write this phrase on a single line. So this isn't too difficult to do. So at this point, you might want to stop the video and try this out for yourself. So the way to do this is pretty straightforward. The first thing we would do is to use our print function. I'm going to use double quotes here and then write "you are beautiful," because you are. And then the next thing I'm going to do is specify what I want the end to be. And so in this case, I don't want the end to be a sort of new line. Instead, what I want the end to be is just a space. So I'm going to use this open quotes and close quotes, but I'm going to put a space between them. And then I'm going to use another print function. And in this case, I'm going to write the second sentence, which is, "I think you are amazing." And in this case, I don't need that optional end parameter. So now when I run the code, I should see "you are beautiful," and then just a space between "I think you are amazing" and this "you are beautiful" sentence. So let's hope this works. Let's go ahead and run the code, and we see that, yep, there it is. "You are beautiful. I think you are amazing." So in this video, we looked at the basics of the print function. We looked at how to print multiple values. We talked about some of the different things that you can print. We looked at the separator, the end parameter, and we talked a little bit about how you could print to a file.